Hi everyone, welcome back and buckle up because today I want to reflect on a few underrated skills that I think either I learned throughout college or I wish I had focused a little bit more on. So let's get out of this parking lot and get to it. If you don't already know, I studied mechanical engineering at the University of Illinois, Urbana-Champaign, and I just graduated less than a year ago. I've been working full-time now for about 6 months, a little bit more. So it's been able to give me some time to reflect on, wow, like these are actually what I'm using from school, and these are some things that I didn't realize was going to be as important, or I'm glad that I got the ability to experience that as well. So I think I'll just name the ones that I think are the most important, and then maybe sprinkle in a few bonus ones as I remember things, because once again, off the dome and driving is number one priority. But I just like using this time to kind of almost in a way like force myself to think about just one thing while I'm driving, because sometimes if I'm driving and I'm not really into my music that much, or if I'm just not really vibing, my brain will just like keep turning and turning. So just kind of giving myself a topic to focus on really helps me just be less anxious about things in general. So pro tip maybe too, if you are anxious like me, maybe like schedule time to think about certain things. So today is a reflecting day, and of course college is the thing that's most recently on my mind in terms of big life event. And so I'm still kind of processing everything that I learned and went through. And I thought I'd share it with you guys. Okay, so the first underrated skill that I'm going to talk about is the ability to present either to a large group of people and or people of authority. I don't think that this is explicitly taught in engineering classes, or at least not at my school, but implicitly through maybe team presentations where you have to present to the class, or during extracurricular activities. That's where you kind of get to build that skill. And I say build because I think it takes practice, and it's kind of hard to get it on your first try if you don't practice and use that muscle. So I think that's why joining things such as extracurriculars is really great, just in general, probably whatever major you are in your college experience, to join an extracurricular, because they really allow you to gain so many soft skills that are very important in industry and just as human beings. So being able to present, and obviously it's a little bit different talking to a camera versus presenting to a group of people. And I wouldn't even say that obviously I'm an expert at that. I think every time that you present, you probably learn something. And my focus now has been trying to limit the amount of filler words that I use when I'm presenting a topic, just because I think it gives me more validity or credibility when I speak in a way that I don't rely so much on filler words, and just really focusing on my pacing. And that's all things that I didn't start off thinking. I think the best way to get this skill is to just practice, and that means just throwing yourself in situations where you can. So if you don't find that you have many presentations to give in your classes or opportunities through the major, then that's where extracurriculars come in handy. So I would say that one is under, what the heck is the word? Under skilled? No. Underrated, because it's not technical. And I feel like the traditional engineering student, and kind of me when I was applying to schools and being excited about what I'm going to learn in college, was like, oh, I'm going to learn all these technical things that I'm going to apply in the real world, which obviously is the basis, right? And what you hope and is the goal. But there's other things that come along with that and help you be more successful in the application of said technical skills. So yeah, I would say that's the first one. And then the second one, this one I think kind of surprised me in that I thought that it would be more widely adopted or understood that it's an important skill that you should have when transitioning to the workplace, and also, once again, in life, which is teamwork and being able to work in a team. So just because you're able to successfully work independently doesn't mean that that's going to translate into being able to work amongst other people. And I think the key part that I noticed once I transitioned to a full-time job is that in your classes, you sometimes get to pick your group mates, or they're temporary, which you could argue that in the workplace your teammates could be temporary as well, but oftentimes you don't get to pick them, like, ever, unless you're like applying for a job and you know the people on that team. And you don't really like rotate through jobs as quick as you do within a class where you could have multiple projects in one semester, and each project you need to have a different team, right? So I think there's just more unknowns and things that you can't control. So learning how to work with any type of person, whether they have positive or negative attributes, and making sure that it doesn't, I guess, affect the quality of your work and the quality of the group's work overall. So I think that skill, I thought it was well developed, like, through my major. Mechanical engineering at U of I is very team-based. Like, every single mechie class has a lot of group components. So that's why I think maybe I made that assumption, like, oh, everybody has experience working within teams. But the more that, well, one, my school is not the definite overarching of all engineering schools, right? So different engineering schools and different or the same major at a different school could be structured completely different. So I think understanding that not everybody has the same ways to think, even just based off of how they were taught, is helpful. And it's important, if you are in the situation where, like, you're still in school, focusing on how to work in a team and what's your go-to for resolving conflict and all that good stuff, because that never stops. Nobody really works alone, or especially engineering. Even if it's a startup, maybe it's a smaller team, but even then it's even more important, right? Because those are the people you're with all the time. So yeah, I would say teamwork is very important, and don't look this one over, because I think it is really helpful to be able to mesh well with your team, and in a way that grows your network when you're able to successfully connect with someone and produce good work together. So yeah, I would say number 2 is teamwork. And then the last underrated skill that I've been reflecting upon recently is the ability to communicate technical work to people who may not be as invested in that technical work as you are. So they might not know all the ins and outs that you do, all the abbreviations and specifics, but they're necessary in the process or whatever it is that you're working on. Being able to communicate something technical in simple terms and in terms that people can understand and make decisions upon afterwards is so important. That's probably like the most important skill, I think, and I think it's one of the hardest ones for an engineer, or just one of the ones that we don't really go into engineering thinking about. I think the classic engineering is, we don't want to like write or read. It's just like math and science. And I think that that's normal, but it's important not to look over those classes that include like technical writing and composition, because they're really just you practicing how to express your thoughts in a way that somebody else can understand and be able to explain your thought process. So all of your lab reports and project essays or anything where you're explaining technical reports, all of that are really good practice for how am I going to convey my ideas so that anybody can understand it. And that doesn't stop after college, because then when you're in the workforce, it transitions to, okay, how am I going to give my progress report to my superior, or how am I going to explain to this separate team my analysis so that they can now move on to their part of the process. There's just so many things that go into it, and they all include communicating and cross-functional communication at that, where you're not going to have all the details that you need, technical details. So I think that is also a really underrated skill that you hopefully have the opportunity to learn in college, and you should seek out if you are recognizing that maybe you haven't been focusing on that. So yeah, I think I'll just leave it at that. 3 underrated skills that you could focus on a little bit more if you are still in college, or work on now in whatever stage of life that you're on, just like I am. So yeah, have a great day.